Clara sat on a worn bench in the city park on a cold winter morning, her frail hands trembling as she clutched the edges of her thin, threadbare coat. Around her, the world seemed both alive and indifferent. Crisp leaves rustled underfoot as joggers passed by, sparing her only the occasional glance. The distant chatter of children playing mingled with the rhythmic hum of traffic from a nearby street. Her stomach growled, but Clara barely noticed, her mind clouded by the weariness of countless nights spent on the unforgiving streets. As she gazed at the overcast sky, she couldn't help but wonder if her life would ever be anything more than this unending struggle. Her hands were cracked from years of hardship, and her old coat was barely enough to shield her from the biting wind. The only sounds were the chirping of birds and the occasional footsteps of passers-by. Clara picked up a small piece of discarded newspaper nearby and read it with mild curiosity. Her tired eyes caught the headline, "Trump coin value on the rise." But she dismissed it with a sigh, thinking such news had no relevance to someone struggling to survive like her. Clara's life was confined to the forgotten corners of society. Once a cleaning lady, she had lost her job and health over the years, eventually ending up on the streets. Every day was a fight for survival, and today was no different. While searching for something to eat, she noticed a crowd gathering in one corner of the park. Curious, Clara's initial skepticism was overwhelmed by the palpable excitement of the crowd. Her heart raced as she took cautious steps toward the gathering, unsure of what to expect. The gleaming luxury limousine parked nearby seemed out of place against the backdrop of her daily struggles. She hesitated, her mind clouded with doubts. Was she even meant to witness such a spectacle? But her curiosity pushed her forward. The vehicle exuded an aura of opulence, its polished surface reflecting the faint winter sun. As the murmurs of the crowd grew louder, Clara's thoughts swirled. Why would such an extravagant car be here, in a park frequented by the downtrodden? Despite herself, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of intrigue and apprehension. The crowd buzzed with excitement as the car door opened, revealing a familiar face, Donald Trump. Clara had only seen him on television before, but today, Trump was about to make a gesture that would change her life forever. Trump stepped out of the limousine and walked through the crowd, heading straight toward Clara. He was flanked by security, but his gaze was fixed on her. "Hello, ma'am," he said warmly. Clara was stunned, unsure why this powerful man was paying attention to her. "I can see life has thrown you some challenges," Trump said, noticing her cracked hands. "But remember, even in the darkest times, there's always a glimmer of hope." Clara nodded politely, though she couldn't quite understand his words. Trump reached into his pocket and pulled out a shiny golden coin. Handing it to her, he said, "This is a Trump coin I created. It might not seem like much now, but one day it could change everything for you." Clara took the coin with a faint smile, though a storm of conflicting thoughts swirled within her. Could this man really be offering her something meaningful? Or was it just another empty gesture from someone who could never understand her plight? She traced the edges of the coin with her thumb, feeling its cool metallic surface. "Thank you," she said hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. Despite her skepticism, a small part of her dared to hope that this was more than just a shiny trinket. She could sense his kindness, but she didn't truly believe this small metal piece could make any difference. "Thank you," she murmured softly. She slipped the coin into her pocket and watched as the crowd dispersed. Days turned into weeks, and Clara almost forgot about the coin as she continued her daily struggle to survive. But one day, as she walked past a bustling cafe, she overheard an excited voice inside. "Trump coin is up 500%! Now's the time to cash in!" a young man exclaimed. Clara paused, recognizing the name. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the coin Trump had given her. Could it really be worth something? She hesitated, but eventually stepped into the cafe. Gathering her courage, she showed the coin to a group of people and asked, "Does this have any value?" The people stared at the coin in amazement. One man exclaimed, "This coin is worth a fortune right now! Where did you get it?" Tears welled up in Clara's eyes. This small metal piece was worth far more than she had ever imagined. With the help of a financial advisor, Clara sold the coin and found herself with $50,000. It was an amount she could hardly comprehend. For the first time in years, she had the means to rebuild her life. Clara rented a small apartment, bought warm clothes, and sought medical care to regain her strength. But her story didn't end there. Clara decided to use part of her newfound wealth to help others. Her first initiative was to organize a hot meal service in the same park where she had once struggled to find scraps of food. Partnering with local volunteers and small businesses, she set up a regular schedule for distributing meals to the homeless and destitute. Beyond food, Clara started creating care packages filled with warm clothes, hygiene products, and other essentials for those still living on the streets. She even rented a small community hall where she held free workshops to help people develop skills, write resumes, and apply for jobs. Over time, Clara's initiatives blossomed into a non-profit organization she named Second Chances, symbolizing the opportunity she had been given and her desire to pass that hope on to others. She organized food drives, job training programs, and temporary shelters for the homeless. Her efforts quickly gained media attention, and people were inspired by her determination and compassion. A year later, Clara and Trump crossed paths again at a charity event. Trump immediately recognized her. "Clara, I never imagined that coin would lead to such a transformation," he said proudly. Clara smiled. "Mr. Trump, you didn't just give me a coin, you gave me hope. Your words that day were a turning point in my life." Clara's journey proved that the Trump coin was more than just an investment tool. It was a catalyst for transformation, inspiring countless others to believe in the power of second chances. Her remarkable story became a beacon of hope for those facing their own struggles, reminding society of the profound impact that even a small act of kindness can have. Clara's success spurred conversations across the country about resilience, community support, and the unforeseen ways in which lives can change when compassion and opportunity intersect. The Trump coin became a symbol not only of financial potential, but also of the enduring strength of the human spirit. Her story reminded the world that even the smallest gestures can change someone's fate. In the darkest moments, a little hope can light the way to a brighter future. The sun hung low over the bustling city, casting a golden glow on its towering skyscrapers. In the heart of the urban chaos, Margaret sat quietly on a worn bench in the park, her fingers clutching a weathered scarf against the chill of the evening air. Life had not been kind to her. Once a teacher, she had been swept into a tide of misfortunes that left her without a home, without a career, and nearly without hope. Margaret spent her days watching people rush by, their lives seemingly untouched by the weight she carried. But that particular afternoon felt different. A black limousine rolled into the park, sleek and commanding attention. Margaret didn't stir at first. Limousines were for the wealthy and powerful, a world she could hardly fathom anymore. Yet when the car stopped nearby, curiosity tugged at her. The door opened, and a man stepped out, dressed sharply in a suit that radiated authority. It was Donald Trump. Margaret blinked, certain her eyes were playing tricks on her. Trump walked purposefully, his gaze scanning the park until it rested on her. To Margaret's astonishment, he approached her directly. "Hello? There," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "Mind if I join you?" Margaret hesitated, unsure of what to say. "Of course," she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Trump sat down beside her, adjusting his tie casually. "What's your name?" "Margaret," she said. "And yours?" she added with a small, nervous smile, though she already knew. He chuckled. Donald. But I have a feeling you know that. Margaret nodded, her curiosity piqued. What brings someone like you here? She asked, her tone a mix of awe and disbelief. Trump leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful. I like to step out of the usual bubble once in a while, see the world from a different perspective, and sometimes I find people with stories worth hearing. Margaret wasn't sure what to say. Her story wasn't one she thought anyone wanted to hear. But Trump's attention didn't waver. He gestured toward her hands, which were folded tightly in her lap. What's your story, Margaret? She hesitated, but something in his demeanor, genuine curiosity perhaps, prompted her to speak. I used to be a teacher, loved my job, loved the kids, but then the school closed and, well, things just fell apart. Lost my home, my savings, everything. Now, I'm just trying to get by. Trump listened intently, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin. It wasn't an ordinary coin. It gleamed with a golden hue, and the words Trump coin were etched into its surface. I want you to have this, he said, placing it gently in her hand. Margaret stared at it, bewildered. What is it? It's something I've been working on. A new venture. This coin represents an idea, an opportunity. Hold on to it, Margaret. You might find it's worth more than you think. She wanted to protest, to tell him that a coin wouldn't solve her problems. But his sincerity stopped her. Thank you, she said, tucking it into her coat pocket. Trump stood adjusting his jacket. Take care of yourself, Margaret, and remember, sometimes the smallest things can lead to the biggest changes. And with that, he was gone, leaving Margaret with more questions than answers. Days turned into weeks, and Margaret thought little of the coin. Survival consumed her every moment. But one evening, as she sat in a shelter, a news report caught her attention. The words Trump coin flashed across the screen. Experts were discussing its unprecedented rise in value, describing it as the next big thing in the world of cryptocurrency. Margaret's heart raced. Could it be the same coin she had tucked away? She retrieved it from her pocket, its golden surface catching the dim light. The shelter's staff helped her verify its authenticity, and the truth left her speechless. The coin was now worth a small fortune. With the help of a kind financial advisor, Margaret sold the coin and suddenly found herself with enough money to change her life. She rented a modest apartment, bought new clothes, and even reconnected with a former colleague who helped her find part-time work at a community center. Slowly but surely, Margaret rebuilt her life. But she didn't stop there. Remembering the struggles she had endured, Margaret started a local initiative to support others in similar situations. She used a portion of her newfound wealth to fund shelters, provide job training, and offer hope to those who had none. Her story spread, inspiring countless others. And one day, at a charity gala she had helped organize, Margaret crossed paths with Trump again. Margaret, he said warmly, extending a hand. I've heard about everything you've done. Looks like that coin found its way to the right person. Margaret smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. You gave me more than a coin, Mr. Trump. You gave me a second chance. Trump nodded, his expression thoughtful. Sometimes that's all it takes. A little chance, a little faith. The rest is up to you. As the evening continued, Margaret realized that her journey wasn't just about the coin or even the man who had given it to her. It was about resilience, kindness, and the power of believing that change is always possible, no matter how dark the days may seem. And in her heart, she knew she would spend the rest of her life passing that belief on to others.